Hi, I'm Amy Putnam, Principal Percussion with Symphony Tacoma. I am thrilled that you are joining us for To the Max, featuring Symphony Tacoma Percussion Section. Before we get started with our program, I wanted to remind you to subscribe to our YouTube page. You can do so by pressing the subscribe button on the bottom right-hand side of your screen. We would love to thank our sponsors. Please help me in thanking Multicare, Tacoma Creates, Washington State Arts Commission, Saturna Capital, the University of Puget Sound, and One Stop Dentistry. If you would like to learn more about making a contribution to Symphony Tacoma, please visit symphonytacoma.org/support for more information. We will be performing music for you that highlights the influences of orchestral composition on contemporary percussion ensemble music. Percussion has been used throughout time to keep a beat, add tone colors, and also create a mood or effect. Percussion can be a part of a larger ensemble, or it can stand on its own. Percussion is found in every genre of music, from classical to jazz to pop to country. It's found all over the world and is thought to be the oldest instruments discovered by humankind after the voice. Today, we'll show you how percussion is used in 3 different orchestral works and 3 modern percussion pieces that have a direct influence from them. In each ensemble piece, the presence of the original forms the foundation for the new music. Our first piece is a percussion ensemble arrangement of Hungarian Dance No. 5 by Johannes Brahms. It has been transcribed from its original by Murray Huliff for Marimba Quartet. I'll talk more about these dances later. First, let's hear Symphony Tacoma perform the work in its orchestral arrangement. And now, the Symphony Tacoma percussion section will perform its version in G minor. I'll be joined with my colleagues Frank Ronneburg, Denali Williams, and Matt Drumm.
The Jazz Age was a cultural period and movement that developed in America during the 1920s, from which new styles of music, dance, fashion, and literature emerged. When Leonard Bernstein composed the music for Arthur Lawrence's book West Side Story in the 1950s, he drew from this cultural movement that had spread widely in the 1930s and 40s. Many genres of music were used in West Side Story, but it was this type of big band jazz that African-American drummer Max Roach became a leader in during the mid-1940s. Widely known as being at the heart of the bebop era, Roach demonstrated extensively that drums are a solo instrument able to play themes, variations, and cohesive lyrical phrases. Roach described his approach to music as the creation of organized sound.
My name is Matt Drumm, and I'm the principal timpanist with Symphony Tacoma. And I'm going to talk to you today about the next piece we're going to play, which is one that I wrote, inspired by the drumming of the great jazz drummer Max Roach, who is my favorite jazz drummer. He was most active in the bebop era in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And he played for such greats as Miles Davis and Charlie Parker and Clifford Brown, as well as many of his own groups. And I was fortunate to be able to see him live one time before he passed away. And one thing probably the thing I like most about his drumming is his soloing was very melodic, and it had shape and form, and it was just very interesting. It wasn't just the typical pyrotechnics that you often see in drum solos. And he, in addition to his soloing with bands, he also composed several solo drum set pieces where it was just him, and he would have a theme that he would play on the drums, and then he would have improvised section, then he'd come back to the theme. So they had form, they had shape, and they were very interesting. And so this inspired me to write this piece based on that drumming. And so there are two movements that we're going to do today. The first one is called Sassy Scherzo, and that I've taken 3 of Max's solos and put them in here. The first one is called Sassy Max. And it's interesting because it's in odd time signature. So it starts off in 5/8, so there's a couple bars of 5/8, and then it goes to 3/4, and then it repeats this theme several times. And then the second section in the middle is taken from a piece called Jasmine, and that one also is in an odd time signature, but it's in 7/4, and there are several variations that we go through. And then in addition, there's a short little snippet from a piece called Billy the Kid, which kind of interrupts the Sassy Scherzo or the Sassy Max theme at the very end, and you'll hear that there's a little triplet thing that happens as well. And then the other movement that we're going to play today is based on Max's solo called Blues for Big Sid, and I've entitled this movement Blues for Big Max. The way I composed this is I took the themes that Max played on drum set and split it up between the 4 of us. You'll see the elements of the drum set: snare drum, toms, bass drum, cymbals, hi-hat, but I've added some things like castanets, tambourine, tempo blocks, as well as timpani. And so we've split these themes up amongst us, but I've done it in different ways. So sometimes you hear different sounds, different colors. Sometimes it's loud, sometimes it's soft. And in addition to these, there's a section in the middle of each movement for each of us to solo. And unlike Max's solos, which would be improvised, I've written these out, but the idea is that they're supposed to sound improvised. And probably my favorite movement or moment in these pieces is the climax of the Blues for Big Max, where it all sounds like we're soloing at the same time, and it comes to this like controlled chaos sort of climax and builds, and then comes back into the theme again at the end. So here is my tribute to the late, great Max Roach.
Hi, my name is Frank Ronneburg, second percussion with the Symphony Tacoma. What you are about to hear is the very end of the Symphonie Fantastique by Hector Berlioz as performed by Symphony Tacoma on November 17, 2018. Of particular interest to today's interlude is how Berlioz uses the percussion section in this piece and its influence on composers of our current time. In the Symphonie Fantastique, Berlioz experiments with quite a few interesting percussion techniques. For instance, although we won't have time to hear it today, the third movement concludes with a very eerie restatement of the symphony's primary theme by the oboe, accompanied by the distant rolling thunder of 4 timpani tuned to 4 different pitches played by 4 players at the same time, producing a true harmonic chord using just timpani. This is made even more noteworthy by the indication in the score to use sponge mallets, unusual for the time as timpanists would generally use wood or leather. The fourth movement, a march to the scaffold, begins with 2 timpanists playing at the same time, with the composer actually giving instructions in the score about how to play the part. However, for today, we have selected the very final moments of the 5-movement work as it concludes with a depiction of a witch's Sabbath. Here, Berlioz cranks it up yet another notch by writing for 2 bass drums playing fast sextuplets in a canonic duel. To perform this, the 2 players lay the bass drums on their sides in order to execute the quick rhythms. As you will see in our next piece, Berlioz's influence from way back in 1830 is alive and well in much modern percussion and orchestral literature. Berlioz's suggestion for mallet choice have evolved into multiple page instructions that indicate how to perform a work, complete with setup diagrams and stick choices. Berlioz's depiction of a witch's Sabbath has become simply a classic presentation of raw percussive energy. The composer calls this an archetype of fascination, 3 people playing like one flowing rhythm. It is a perfection of wildness in an archaic ritual cult. Just like Berlioz, the piece you're about to hear has a bass drum lying on its side, although here the 3 players share a single drum. The composition explores the various sounds, textures, and colors that you can get by striking different parts of the drum, along with a few other sounds coming from bongos and china gongs. Of particular note is the way the sounds flow around and between the players, making a melody of sorts. But instead of pitches, this melody consists of rhythm, texture, color, and space. Please enjoy as my colleagues perform an excerpt from the first movement of Trio per Uno by Nebojša Jovan Zivkovic.
Hungarian dances by Johannes Brahms are a set of 21 lively dances based mostly on Hungarian themes, completed in 1879. They vary from about a minute to 5 minutes in length. These dances are among Brahms' most popular works and were the most profitable for him. Each dance has been arranged for a wide variety of instruments and ensembles. Brahms' original version was for piano 4 hands, which is a piano duet using one piano. He later arranged the first 10 dances for solo piano. Before writing the Hungarian dances in 1850, Brahms met the Hungarian violinist Eddie Remini and accompanied him on a number of recitals. This was his introduction to gypsy-style music, such as the Zsardas, which later proved to be the foundation of this lucrative and popular set of compositions. Only numbers 11, 14, and 16 are entirely original compositions. The better-known Hungarian dances include numbers 1 and 5, the latter of which was based on the Zsardas melody, Memories of Bartfai, by Hungarian composer Béla Kéler. Brahms mistakenly thought this melody was a traditional folk song, and on one orchestration, the publisher made a footnote that it was indeed taken from an earlier work by Béla Kéler. Published in 2 parts, books 1 and 2 contained dances 1 to 10 and were published in the piano duet version in 1869. Books 3 and 4 were completed in 1879 and published the following year. It contained dances 11 to 21. Brahms himself only wrote orchestrations for numbers 1, 3, and 10. Other composers have included Antonin Dvorak, Albert Parlot, and Ivan Fischer, amongst others. The 5th dance, which we opened with, was originally written in F-sharp minor, and we played it in a more comfortable key for our instruments, G minor. Now we will perform for you the 6th dance, originally in D-flat major. We will be playing our own arrangement from a piano 4 hands version in C major. We hope you have enjoyed this focus on Symphony Tacoma percussion. you.